Welcome to the welcome to the Zombie Apocalypse broadcast. Um, this is the first episode, or second if you count the introduction earlier. So I'll give a brief explanation of the name. In this podcast, in this series of podcasts, we'll be explaining how we are in a world full of zombies, and an apocalypse is actually a good thing. It means lifting of the veil, and the veil that's keeping zombies is the belief in subjective morality. It's leading to all the war, crime, and poverty, and all the problems that plague humanity. And we're trying to free these zombies and cure them of their ignorance and help them become true human beings with education of true objective morality. And that's the main thing the podcast is about. But we'll be teaching natural law. We'll be doing an introduction to the occult and talking about several interesting topics that'll change from week to week. And the other podcast members who are going to bring up some topics are Jerry, Darren, and Kurt. And my name's Jeff. And would you like to continue, Jerry, and explain some of the talk about the first topic you'd like to talk about tonight?
Well, I would also like to plug our websites. Mine is godislovetruthlife.com. I'll pass it to you, Darren.
My YouTube channel is Dunning Team Kruger Force, and the username is Sovereign Cyborg 93.
And Jeff, what's the name of your YouTube again?
My YouTube channel is Decentralizing Mind Control.
Sweet. Maybe we could start by Kurt. You made a good observation comment in our brief conversation. Well, do you want to?
We should probably start even before that with someone giving an explanation of the word apocalypse, because a lot of people think of that as the end of the world, right?
Right.
Oh, totally. I forgot to explain.
You guys don't have the same definition in your head than
the etymological definition is lifting of the veil. So the veil is a veil of illusion. So we're just trying to destroy illusions and provide clarity of truth.
Well, and that would also change the definition of zombie apocalypse, right? Then it's not the end of the world because of the zombies, it's the lifting of the veil of the zombies.
Yeah, apocalypse does not actually mean end of the world. Right. In the Bible and the Revelations, they talk about the end of the world and also the apocalypse, and I think a lot of people are under the misconception, but the true etymological meaning is not the end of the world. It could be the end of the way things are, end of the slavery control system of the world, but it just means lifting the veil, ending the illusions.
Right, and that's my point, is that with that etymological definition, the name of the broadcast then becomes the lifting of the illusion of the zombies, which is a very good way of describing what you're trying to do, right?
Right. You're trying to lift the illusion, cure the zombies, help them
I was first off
stop
just
being
trying to
dead.
comment that it was a very well-picked name.
Okay. I thought you were you should be some different name. All right.
No, I thought it was great. I just wanted to point out that discrepancy, right? But with that, we were talking about the state of consciousness if we're trying to raise it, and I had commented that a lot of the people in my personal life around me who aren't already aware of a lot of the topics we're probably going to go over have really they've consciously regressed in the last 4 or 5 years, where, I mean, man, I was hanging out with a high school buddy a few months ago, just watching like crappy B movies and making fun of them together. But we got talking about some of the problems going on in the world at one point while we were taking a break, and he said to me at one point, "Well, I just think there are bigger problems in the world, man." And I'm like what? And he says, "Billionaires."
Wow.
Do you want to elaborate on that? Is there more to that idea?
Oh my God.
He didn't have anything beyond that. Just the fact
Wow.
billionaires exist was the problem. And he had no how they got there, any idea of like the corporate corruption. There was no
Certain billionaires do very bad things with their influence, but the fact that they exist, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Wow.
You know, I want to say something about the free market. Using the free market, it's the way like someone could amass great wealth and get ahead without conquering or stealing. Before the without the free market, the only way to amass a lot of wealth and have success and get ahead is by dominating or conquering others. But with the free market, you do it by serving others.
But it's
And
not a free market.
yeah, the true free market like works against monopolies. Like the monopolies exist because the market's not free and there's too much government existence. And capitalism, it's an ism. It sounds bad.
Election
What?
campaigns and then the politicians legislate things that make it impossible for small businesses to start up and challenge them. It's cartelism. It's just a joinder between the public and private sector to create essentially monopoly fiefdoms that can be maneuvered and handed out and adjusted by just changes in legislative policy.
I love that. Monopoly fiefdoms. That's right.
And just having to use fiat currency stops it from being a free market. And all government is actually a type of socialism. And it's all designed to develop into more and more totalitarian socialism until you have like pure communism or Nazism or something.
Have you guys watched the Two Masks, Same Face lecture by Mark Passio yet?
Yes,
Yeah,
I have.
A month ago.
It was very excellent.
Yeah, that wasn't like on our original talking points list, but I just wanted to bring it up because like there's this like false dichotomy between like nationalism and socialism, but they're just fucking the same thing.
Nationalism is a type of socialism. You know, every country has two main parties, either the nationalist or the globalist.
Even the Nazi Party was the National Socialist Party.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the globalists are pretty much the communists or something developing into something like communism, and the nationalists are more like Nazism. And here we have the Republicans and Democrats. The Republicans are the nationalists, the Democrats are the socialists. And I actually think the Democrats are more dangerous, but that doesn't excuse having the Republicans. It's still national sovereignty instead of individual sovereignty. And anything other than individual sovereignty is slavery. One of the big problems that keeps people zombies is they don't want to admit their condition of slavery.
Right. Went and saw the Two Masks in person there in
Whoa, rad.
Pennsylvania. And
Awesome.
I would say, and I purchased a copy as soon as it went on the website, and I've distributed it to a couple people. As far as I know, I don't think any of them have watched it in full.
Oh, fuck.
It's very difficult to get somebody to dedicate 8 hours of their life to one thing. You know, it's crazy. But I would think that this would be, if it were up to me, you wouldn't be able to graduate high school or be a legal adult unless you've seen Two Masks, Same Face and could comprehend it by passing a quiz. I think that's comprehending that you would be considered at least an adult, because if you don't, you're dangerously ill-informed. And I especially like the parts about how whether there were National Socialists or International Socialists, they were bankrolled by the same people, and they were educated and shared the same schools of thought. Just ancient social engineers,
Well,
eugenics.
the entire time those wars were going on, the German war machine was dependent on minerals from the United States and Britain, or at least British companies, in order to
Right.
sustain their vehicle production. They could have shut the whole war down just by turning off trade, and for some reason they didn't. They chose to just keep throwing human lives into the meat grinder, right? On the topic Jeff was talking about, I just wanted to point out that regardless which of the parties you voted in Congress, right behind the speaker on both sides, you have two 20-foot tall fascists right behind
Right,
them.
dude.
Like, it doesn't matter which party's allegedly in power, they're telling you exactly who and what they are.
Is that in both USA and Canada, the fascists?
We do have it a couple places, but I'd have to go look up the list of where they are again. But I know it's made its way into a few things.
We have ancient Roman monuments in our capital cities. I mean, we
And
literally take the occult symbols. Yeah, Heliopolis and, Egyptian symbols too, Greek, Roman, and Egyptian. But yeah, I mean,
pentagram. It's a happening place.
Oh yeah.
I should probably sit down and look at Ottawa and try to see if I can find occult symbolism in the street layout sometime.
You know
Also,
what
the
I was
flags.
thinking of?
Sorry.
I was thinking recently of the royal motto, Dieu et mon toi, God in my right.
Ugh.
The royal motto, it's been used by French and English, and as well as
Divine right.
foreign governments. But yeah, God in my right, which is the French phrase in Latin would be Deus meum que jus, and that's the motto on the for the 32nd degree of Freemasonry. And so, some people look at it as they've gotten the divine right to rule over other people, but really, the true meaning of that is there's God and then there's your rights. Basically anything that's not violating God's law is your right. So, to be a truly sovereign, free, moral agent is the goal of the moral philosophies of all legitimate societies. And then what's happened is these have degraded and devolved into some kind of perverted, greed cult. I think of it as like the Temple of Doom, just looting and stealing and murdering,
Using
having it, enshrined in a facade of legitimacy.
Can you say that again, Kurt? Sorry.
I thought when he said Temple of Doom, I was thinking of the Indiana Jones movie. And how they were using the mind-controlled zombies to do the slave labor for them.
Yep.
Exactly that, actually. They even called it Temple of Doom.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I saw it when I was 5.
But on that note, actually, I've been trying to start researching Freemasonry, and I've only been dipping my toe in it. Is there any specific place you'd suggest starting?
Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike.
Now, should I read the other version by Eliphas Levi, the first? Ritual and Dogma of High Magic, I think it's called. Because I thought there was suspicion that was heavily plagiarized by Albert Pike.
Well, Albert Pike. So I can't say because I've read excerpts of Eliphas Levi's work, but I haven't read it in its entirety.
Okay.
But my personal recommendation would be Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, and then
I haven't read that one, but I've heard something about it. And since you've read it, I want to ask you if this is true that Albert Pike, like back in the Civil War times, he like wrote out the plan of like everything that's happened up until today, like for World War I, World War II, and World War III is supposed to, I think, get started between Israel and Iran.
If you read Morals and Dogma, you'll find like kind of globalist political doctrine like kind of sprinkled in with the explanations of some of the degrees.
Is it true that he like
he's on the same page? Like not everybody agrees with Albert Pike. He was one man. He doesn't speak for all of Freemasonry, but he was hugely influential.
But does the book actually predict the 3 world wars?
I've seen the quotes, but I don't specifically recall that from Morals and Dogma.
Let's do a book club and read it, and then next week we'll talk about it.
That one is a long read.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I don't know if I got time to read that this week.
Oh shit! It's 500 fucking pages. Well, maybe in 2 weeks.
Some of these things are tomes, man.
I know. We're talking
about an arc last year. I've had times when I've been off work where I just spent like 8 to 10 hours that day just sitting and reading, and I've still only gotten through a fraction of what I want to on there. And every time I talk to someone, new books get added. So the list.
Hiram Key is a good one. The Hiram Key.
Okay.
By Christopher Knight and Robert Lomas. And then Manly P. Hall's work, The Lost Keys of Freemasonry. I don't know if you have the ARC drive, but that's on there, and Manly P. Hall's work.
There's a lot of audio stuff from Manly P. Hall on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
And at worst, one of us could send the file to him.
Yep.
That would actually, that'd be a great idea if we go through these videos after and make a list of books that were mentioned, and if we can post a PDF for them so that anyone who watches this could.
Wow, yeah. Totally. I can try to arrange that, yes. While we're sort of checking out stuff, I wanted to maybe bring up the topic of objective morality, since I think it's important for us to sort of define what that is. Does anyone want to start or give a go, or maybe I can start, or how are we feeling?
I'd like to start.
Yeah, go ahead.
It might be a long explanation, but I want to be thorough. I want to start about like what I was saying last night in the after class conversation. I was talking about conscious beings co-creating the reality. I mean, like to really explain it thoroughly, that's a place we should really start. Now, like time, it's something we experience from our point of view, whether it's an illusion or not. And the past is what happened. It's what's true. It's set in stone. It cannot be changed. The future is yet to be created, and that's what we co-create. Consciousness creates the future with the actions we take and the decisions we make. And like consciousness dwells in the present, but it gradually moves from the past to the future, and every moment, every conscious being chooses what action to take or not to take, and by the choices that they make and the actions they take, a different future is created. Like every moment, there's trillions of timelines that we could branch off into, but we all branch off into one specific one based on the choices that every conscious being in the whole universe takes. And conscious beings could even be like on the micro scale with the quantum possibility of where some particle could actually be from one moment to the next moment until it's observed. It could be some type of consciousness we don't even understand on the micro scale. But for simplicity, let's talk about like the actual like free will that we understand, like the conscious beings that we recognize as life forms, living organisms of organic life on Earth. We're creating the future 1 second at a time, 1 moment at a time, with the actions that we take. And rights aren't something that come from any government. They're a type of action. Right is an adjective. It means correct, not wrong, not incorrect. But in regards to when rights are referred to as nouns, they're talking about actions all the time. That's the true meaning. And they're classifying actions into 2 groups: right actions or wrong actions. A right thing is something that's not wrong. And since every conscious being has its own free will, right could be defined as something that does not violate the free will of another conscious being, which creates freedom. Actions that are not wrong are rights. And who says what's right or wrong? It's considered wrong if it does harm, but the harm is done when another being's free will is violated. And don't steal another being's free will. And in this material world, it has a lot of matter. The matter actually is what doesn't matter. Like the inanimate matter doesn't matter. The animate matter, the life forms are what matters. Like a rock could take an action because it does a reaction. It bounces because another rock hits it, and it bounces and rolls down and hits something. That's not a conscious action. The life forms are the ones who take conscious actions, and inanimate matter, it could be claimed. It could be made property if you put it to use and do something creative with it. If you acquire it without theft, without hurting anyone, it's your property. Your actions are your property. Yourself, your body is your property. So the owner of the property gets to say what condition of the property or what action taken to affect the property is correct or incorrect. What's correct is what's consented by the owner. So that's what right is. Right is something that doesn't do harm. And morality is distinguishing actions between right and wrong. And it's something objective. If you understand that something that's right is something that does not do harm, and there's laws built into the universe that govern morality, and they actually don't say don't do wrong. They simply the laws built into the universe say that when you do wrong, there's certain consequences. When you do right, there's other consequences. It's the physical world is a world of cause and effect, and it's connected to the mental world, which is the root cause of everything that happens on the physical world. But these things that happen in the physical world, whether they're right or wrong, they have effects. And we live in a semi-closed system on planet Earth. If we do wrong things, more wrong things are done. And we're creating our reality. We're co-creating a hell by doing wrong, by not understanding morality and living by it. But we could create a heaven instead if we do understand right and wrong and do the right things. Then we'll have good results. The wrong things are harming other people. You harm other people. A lot of people are harmed. You steal instead of creating. It just causes less prosperity to go around until there's not enough for everybody. The symbiotic lifestyle is in line with doing right. The predatory lifestyle is kind of in line with the actions we categorize as wrong, and the predatory way is less efficient. Not everyone creates. There's some who create and some who consume, and eventually all the creators are consumed and there's no creators left, and it leads to a bad result where in society we get the condition of slavery. People doing things they don't want to do, fighting against other human beings, having war, having mental illness and crime, and having people locked up in prison. And that all happens because people don't understand that morality is objective. They think it's subjective, and some people could claim that they're the authority figure. They could say what right and wrong is, and then other people, they don't have to decide what's right and wrong. They could just follow the decisions made by the accepted authority, which is always a false authority. Authority means, the root of the word is author. The author of the universe is the creator of the universe, nature, God. We're all just a part of that. No one is like the creator of everything. But, life is something that creates itself. Like our cells die and regenerate. Like we are the creator of ourself and our own property. We took it from inanimate matter and we made it like part of ourself. We put it to use. We're the authority of ourself, but no one else. And because we're the authority of ourself, we get to say what's right for ourself and our property. But the notion that one living being can own another living being is false, because every being deserves individual sovereignty. And any claim of authority is actually a claim of ownership over another living being, but it's put in a different way, so it sounds more nice and friendly, and people accept it. But if you really know what accepting any authority over you, it means you're a slave, and that authority owns you. And it's wrong. Everyone has the right to own themselves, and the belief in authority over other human beings goes along with the belief in subjective morality, and it is the root cause of all the problems. We need to end it. It's the veil that clouds the eyes of the zombies, and once it's cleared and they could see the truth, they could truly live as humans. Anyone else?
Wow, great job, Jeff. That was awesome.
Could I give a real world example to that? Because a lot of people are gonna, the moment you start talking about something like objective morality, they're gonna be like, well, prove that it exists. There's always that kind of mentality, and it's something where, like, you don't kick someone's dog and then get struck by lightning when you walk out the front door. On the micro scale, it's not that immediate.
Sure.
So on the micro scale, when you're walking down the street, yeah, you might see someone get mugged and the other guy get away with the car or whatever else. So it can very much look like that's not how the world is. But it's easier to see when you step back to the macro scale and look at collective behaviors of societies and whether their society is growing and getting better or much worse, directly correlating that to their behavior. And you can really see that in a lot of inner cities right now, where there's been rampant shoplifting and sort of like organized mob crime where people will just rush a store and take everything. And
Mm.
with that, all of these things take a lot of risk. People take out big loans, they set up these stores, they try to run a business. And when the risk starts to get too high and the insurance payments start to get too high, it closes up. And then these people who are lit downtown and poor, now there's nothing around them downtown because, well, you were the ones attacking all the stores. Yeah, you got to run away with a bunch of free shit a couple times, but in the long run, you drove everything out of your own neighborhood, and now you're still stuck there living in it. And that does mean that people who didn't participate in that still end up living in that situation as well, because it's
Right.
based on the average level of behavior of the group in that area. It's not
Yes.
just you, the individual. And that's part of why this podcast exists, is that you need to make people aware of that so on average people can collectively choose better behavior. But a big part of that is most people can't even identify where their rights end and another person's begin. There are all these assumptions about what you're owed from other people that they have in their heads. And that's a large part of what government is. It's, well, of course we need to tax your neighbors because you want health care, right? We'll give you this. You just have to justify us robbing everyone. Just agree that no one has property rights and we'll give you things you want.
Yeah.
That's always what it is. So the very essence of what government is coercing people to agree to immoral behavior as long as they see
Yes.
benefit in it in some way.
I'm just sitting here nodding. Yep. Keep
But
going, guys. This is awesome.
that's you
And some
can
people, you even prove that to them, and they don't care. They acknowledge that they're just accepting doing wrong because it gets them ahead and it hurts someone else. Um, and it's sad. They justify it. They think there has to be winners and losers in the world. They have a scarcity mindset. There's not enough to go around for everybody.
Fear too.
You know what could really change that is maybe hard to prove logically. It's spirituality. You can prove it logically that like the spiritual world exists. We have thoughts and emotions. Those are things that there's no scientific explanation for. Like they could see how brains could store data, but the actual experience of thinking a thought or feeling an emotion, that's a whole different layer of reality. That is the mental level of reality. So I think some people try to deny it, but if you put it like that, you have to exist. The mental level of reality, you have to admit the mental level of reality exists. But what some like occultists like have like some hidden occult information about the mental level of reality. Oh, I forgot what I was saying. Someone else want to continue for a minute?
Darren, did you have anything to add to the conversation?
Yeah. It is very difficult to get people to acknowledge the existence of objective morality. And in my experience, most people don't think about the morality of government until they have a bad experience. That's
Totally.
often what it is. They don't have any personal, direct, firsthand, anecdotal experience. So they just believe what they're told. If somebody gets arrested, they must have done something wrong. And if the news says that this is what was going on and that person must be guilty, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, until people see it up close, they may never really believe that there is even a problem. And I've seen, a lot of examples of people refusing to do the right thing simply because there's nothing in it for them.
Oh,
I remembered what I was going to say. I was going to say that to make people care about other people besides themselves, to care about the whole universe, to love their environment, is spirituality. Is like understanding some of these occult secrets. Like, for example, something I learned from Mark Passio. Tell me if you can confirm this from your experience in Freemasonry, Darren. That like one question they ask every initiate when they're becoming a third degree Mason. I think that's the Master Mason degree. They ask them like, how does one know that one is hurting? How does one individual know that they themselves are hurting? And the answer to that is because they see others hurting. Do you remember like ever being asked that question, Darren?
I never did my third degree.
Oh, so the reason that's the answer is because if someone else is hurting, that means that you're hurting because like we're more than an individual. We're when you really understand as above, so below. You see the patterns in nature, like the probiotic bacteria living in your stomach. They're living, they're individuals, but they're actually a part of you. Like they're part of your body. Imagine being in their shape, like you're their environment that provides them food and shelter and everything. Like if they could understand that they would truly love you. That's a part of you, and like the whole universe is some living thing that we're all a part of. You should love that living thing, but also understand this universe with all these individual consciousnesses. They're all they're distorted reflections of each other. They're another version of you. And this, I don't want to get into dogmatic things, but I'm going to say my own beliefs. I think maybe some of these can be proven with occult science, but I heard of. I believe that every individual is actually the same person. We're just like playing different characters so we could interact with each other. One became many to have company, to not be alone, and that's where free will came in. I heard some rabbi on YouTube talking about this, and he actually had kind of a good explanation for when God created like the first other individual. He didn't want to have just like a reflection, like a mirror image of himself, someone that automatically agrees with him, just like another clone, someone that has no like varying opinions. It would be boring if every single person was identical. So like that's why free will was created. But with free will, there's the ability to choose right and wrong, and it causes problems, but like we could solve the problems, and free will is worth it. Like instead of like one individual, we have infinite numbers of individuals to make friends with, and like a growing, evolving world for consciousness to dwell. So yeah, learn the occult, learn spirituality. It helps understand objective morality, and it gives a reason to care about it.
Burn off to people, though. A lot of people, you start talking about the Vedic chakras, flick off. Same if you start trying to talk to them about Freemasonry or Hermeticism or alchemy, you just see the glass go over in their eye.
You know what? It's a good thing to get people's attention on that, though. Tell them every rich person that they've ever heard of knows about this shit. Maybe they'll pay attention then.
That's true. Did you guys have a hard time
rich
understanding
and successful
Kurt?
people have in common? They're occultists. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Go ahead, Kurt.
on Darren's point about needing to have something that kind of wakes you up to what government is, that's right up until 2020, I was still completely brainwashed. I thought I was going to do a 25-year career in the military.
Wow.
It wasn't until that experience where I could see the behind closed doors behavior regarding the alleged pandemic and what was being put on the public that I could really see the disparity and understand what was being done there.
Yeah.
And it was the lie that offended me enough that I had to leave. But that's, yeah, unless you see it for, again, going back to things like Matrix references, until you wake up and actually see the machine for yourself, no amount of description of it's going to make sense. You have to, and that's part of it. We could sit here and do 1,000 episodes, and on its own, it wouldn't be enough to wake one person up. They'd still have to go looking for some primary sources for themselves outside of it.
Right.
For instance, like, don't just, when you hear someone who you think is a crazy anti-vaxxer, don't just write them off. Go to your official government health statistics website and look at the deaths year by year and separate them to pre and post.
Wow.
So what happened after spring of 2021? Look at the difference between that and the previous 5-year average. Do it for yourself. Go straight to the primary source. Read it for yourself. Don't listen to a 1-minute video of someone talking about a holy book you've never looked at and what it contains, and then form your opinion about another group of people based on that. Take the time, sit down with the book, go through it for yourself. Cross-reference things. Look up if there are different translations of lines that change meanings. Actually try to digest it. Until you've done that, you don't really have an opinion on it. And when you do, it doesn't matter which topic is dear to you that you start with. If you start really digging into the history of the medical industry, you'll wake up. If you start digging into the deep history of law, you'll wake up. If you
Right.
start digging into the history of any of the major religious institutions, you'll end up waking up. If you actually start scratching, no matter where you start, you'll find bodies every single time. But
That's kind of what I did. Like when I was a teenager, having been robbed at gunpoint, and I started researching different like experiences on death and what life means. I ended up going down this rabbit hole, reading about different methods of self-realization, yoga, the Vedas, Tantra, Kundalini, Zen, all different kinds of meditation, all different religious scriptures. And, I saw how they were all different, but all exploring like different aspects. And I started to see where they started to contradict themselves or how they were limited. If you try to just restrict yourself to one worldview, if you want to remain firmly identified as a certain thing, a Christian, a Muslim, a Buddhist, you have to, at some point, you have to choose to reject things on their face if they don't fit with your worldview, instead of maybe modify your own worldview. So I went from studying a bunch of religions to realizing that it's not only impossible to have all the answers within one religion, but it's ridiculous to even fully accept one path, and
Yeah.
which made sense to me because, as Mark Passio has put it in his work, you need an eclectic variety of sources, right?
Yeah.
Just like Jeet Kune Do's philosophy is, you use what works, you discard what does not work, everybody's
Right.
style is their own, but they're going to have fundamental principles in common, and that's things that are direct and things that work. And they may look a little bit different, but they're not going to be counterproductive if they're true. So
Hmm.
in my search for truth, I was asked, many times, like, well, what are your beliefs? Or you're reading the Bhagavad Gita, so you're a Hindu, right? And I'm like, man, it's just a title, because
Yeah.
then, what if you say like, yeah, I'm a Hindu, and then what? Like, you can't go to a Christmas party? Like, I just don't understand why the labels matter, because
Sure.
what they do is they'll try to say, like, let's say if you're trying to express morality to somebody and you said, you know what, I don't really support this, it's against my beliefs, then they'll be like, well, what are your beliefs? Oh, you're Hindu? There's plenty of Hindus in the military, so therefore you're not exempt from service. Or, oh, you're Presbyterian? Well, there's nothing from, the World Congress of Presbyterians that says you can't get a vaccine. Oh, the Pope said you should get a vaccine. You know what I mean? Like, so a lot of these labels are to figure out, like, what your
To put you
tax
in a
exempt
box.
status is going to be and what you're going to
Yep.
believe in. Some
Totally.
bullshit way of plugging you back into the matrix.
Yeah, you've got
Thinking,
to
like, you can't be a Christian and believe in reincarnation, can ya? Or, this made up bullshit. And I try to tell people that
They
some
took
of
that
these
out of the Bible.
scriptures, yeah, exactly. And some of these people are like, to the point where I've heard people say, if every word of the Bible isn't true, then none of it's true. And,
I have
people are just so
regarding a story involving Lot, if they say that.
lot.
There are certain parts of the Bible that I am absolutely certain are not the Word of God.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, the Council of Nicaea or something. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's like this. We could take a bunch of true facts and limit, even if we were dealing with only true statements, we could present an array of true statements in
About
such
the
a way
Bible
that are misleading and will
Yeah.
lead you to the wrong conclusion. And that's just
Absolutely.
even dealing with true facts, right? I could say, everybody who wears a red shirt ends up getting in a car accident, and here are a bunch of car accidents of people who wore a red shirt.
You see
You
that
know?
in the media today where
Correlation.
you'll have people who have an opinion about an interview and they didn't actually watch the full 2 or 3 hour interview. All they watched were the 15-second sound bites that were carved up by the news companies for them to watch without any of the surrounding context to explain what was being discussed. And they're just repeating what the news company told them their opinion should be. And you can tell when you're talking to them, it's terrifying. But you can see that happening in real time where you'll have different clips on the conservative networks, different clips being used on the liberal networks. Both of them have no clue what was actually said during that interview. Like
Right.
Totally.
1% of the population took the time out of their life to actually watch it. The number of people that said to me, man, I didn't have the time to sit down and watch the Putin interview. They're
Oh,
like,
wow.
your country is potentially going to war with this nation, and you don't want to sit for 2 hours and understand the at least alleged mindset of the guy on the other side of that.
Right.
Really, what was more important to you last night? And I know for a fact you were just
Bread
sitting
and
up
circus.
watching shows. Yeah.
I remember reading the Bible in jail because that was the only book that I had. And I was reading the New Testament, and it gets to some point where it says, all the people in government are there because God wants them to be, and, God
Bullshit.
appoints the rulers and the kings, and it's our duty
Slave talk. Yeah.
It's in the New Testament, and I forget what chapter it was. Romans
I'm almost
figures.
certain it's Romans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
looked, and then I shut the book and I literally chucked it at the wall
Good for
and let
you.
it hit the floor. And I was like, "Get this shit
Yeah.
out of here!"
No,
I
it's
got
the
extra
King
toilet
James
paper.
version. It's the King James version. That makes it official. Who was
Right.
King James? They don't know. They haven't done a minute of research into who King James was or what he
Right.
stood for. But it's the King
There's
James.
a lot of valuable information and allegories in it as well. There's a ton of bullshit. It's been
I'm not
translated so many times.
Bible. I have,
Right, because if it was 100% stupid, no one would read it. You know.
Right.
If people
Half
truly
truths.
tried to live in a way that emulated Christ's behavior, the world would be an objectively better place.
Right.
Yeah.
That
You know, I don't remember where I saw this. I'd like to give some references, but it's some interesting proposed fact. I'm not sure if it's true, but I heard that the King James version of the Bible was written by Sir Francis Bacon, and also that Sir Francis Bacon was the actual Shakespeare. The Shakespeare was like a pen name. It was someone
I think
who
he was a Rosicrucian too.
I heard he was a Freemason, or maybe he was both. But
Kurt, were you gonna finish?
He was a little before that.
Shakespeare wasn't a real guy.
Kurt, were you gonna finish a thought before?
Well, I was just bringing up that the world. It's one thing to have criticisms of the Bible, and you can still have figures and things that you deeply respect within it, and passages that you deeply appreciate. Like you can read it with discernment and still care deeply for it. You don't have to fall into this dichotomous I'm for or against with it. I mean, in the same way, there's lots of other art where I might not agree with the artist on everything, but I still appreciate their art, right?
Right.
Right. It was very frustrating to see where the social engineering is injected amongst other valuable words of wisdom.
Incredibly. And it would be wonderful for people to actually start reading the holy books and other important documents that get heavily into symbolism, because the amount of symbol illiteracy is so mind-blowing. So I don't really watch sports normally, which means
Same.
I don't watch the Super Bowl, which means I haven't really looked at Super Bowl halftimes until recently.
Very
But going
satanic
back
shit.
through, I think it was the 2016 Super Bowl. They had Madonna dressed as a golden cow
Ugh.
on top of a stepped Aztec pyramid, with mostly naked men in animal headdresses dancing behind her. And the whole time, she's singing a song about how not everyone's going to get to go on into the future.
Gross.
And again, it's Madonna, so you have a woman and a sacred female name acting in the place of a male bull. So you also have the transgenderism in there, too.
I suspect she's an MK Ultra sex slave.
Maybe.
Yeah, I really want to talk about MK Ultra because since
Hold on. Can we let Kurt finish real quick? Sorry.
Just you can have something that is so openly a magical ritual being done directly in front of people, and they're so uneducated about what those things even are. They're just sitting there like, "Oh, that was an odd choice for a performance, wasn't it?" Like, it's when you sort of the they live in now. Once you put those glasses on and you can see it, you're looking around at the people beside you. How are you looking at this?
Dude, one of my friends.
Part of the absolute frustration once you start looking into these things that other people somehow can't see it, and it really does make you feel isolated. But I'm sorry, Jeff. What did you want to say?
Oh no, I'm sorry. You started first, so I'm glad I let you finish. But I just wanted to comment since we're talking about symbols. I heard how symbols actually work, where their power comes from, and MK Ultra is a great example of it. So like I've watched a lot of documentaries. I've heard a lot about like what took place with the MK Ultra CIA project.
It's probably still going on.
They're trying to do what?
I said it's probably still going on.
Oh yeah. It's named mind control, or actually there's I think mind control in German is spelled with a K, but also there's the Monarch project. I think they're two different projects, but they like they worked a lot together. They might even be the same project. I think MK Ultra might be like an acronym for.
I thought Monarch was the one run by the British intelligence, wasn't it? Or am I thinking of something else?
No, I'm pretty sure they're both CIA, but whether they're two projects or not, and a lot of these
joint
CIA
operations.
things collaborate with like spies across the world. MI6. What, Darren?
Yeah, they were joint operations at some point.
Okay, but like the reason they took the name Monarch is because the monarch butterflies, they have a long migration, and like they remember like their route. They've like done tests on their brain. They figure out they actually have memory of how to go. Even though their lifespan is very short, they die before they finish their trip. But their offspring is born, and it still remembers the trip of the ancestors before them. Like they're actually inheriting memories from their ancestors, and they're trying to tap into that. The use of the symbols, like the dark occultists, who the Christians have labeled Satanists. They've been around for thousands and thousands of years, but they've been like making their symbols and like showing them to people, and like the subconscious actually in humans, just like butterflies, the subconscious inherits memories from the parents and grandparents and all the ancestors, and like the people who've been in these families for several generations, they've been exposed to these symbols more, so like they're more perceptive to the symbols, which could be used to control the mind through the subconscious. People could use symbols on purpose to control their own mind if they understand it thoroughly. But they were trying to find people who are from generational satanic abuse families, so they've been exposed to these symbols and mind control techniques for thousands of years. And one of the mind control techniques is to make a multiple personality disorder, the fractured consciousness, which is done through trauma. And like a lot of the satanic families are like pedophiles, and they could find them easily, like ones who don't even know they're from a satanic family, like the people who got in trouble for pedophilia and child abuse. And the government sometimes takes them and blackmails them and makes a deal like, you're not going to get in trouble, you'll actually be a politician if you do what we say, give your children up to adoption. And they go to some government program where the government practices these mind control techniques on some of them, like the people, like the kids who have been abused. Not only have they already had the process of being traumatized started, but they're from families that have been doing it for generations. Usually, it's like the child abuse is something that's like usually inherited, and those families that do that, like, they're usually descended from like the satanic families, even if like the current generation doesn't even know anything about it. But the symbols affect your subconscious, and your subconscious is very, very powerful. Like hypnotists who know how to access the subconscious, they can have like power, and like they can cause effects and have success. You wouldn't think you'd have those capabilities with your conscious mind, but your subconscious is like it's like so much more powerful. If you tap into it, you can like really cause some amazing effects.
On the point about symbolism, have you guys watched Merck's presentation of occult mockery of the police and military.
Yes.
Occult mockery of what?
The police and military.
Oh yeah.
So
I watched the What on Earth is Happening podcast where he talked a lot about it. I don't think I saw the separate presentation, but
okay, in the Telegram, I just sent the cap badge I used to wear on my beret when I was in the army.
Holy shit, we're definitely adding that to the description of this episode.
It's the
Oh
hyper.
God.
It's more importantly, it's the hypercube, and at the center you've got that golden crown. Inside, the VRI is a Latin cipher. It stands for Victoria Regina Imperatrix.
Ugh.
So it's Victoria, Queen and Empress. So the Royal Canadian Regiment was at some point as an honorific sort of named on behalf of Queen Victoria. So even when the British monarch changes over, RCR specifically is still always considered Queen Victoria's regiment.
Wow.
And so they have the symbol for mind control and the crown with Victoria and her title in the center of the mind control.
Disgusting.
But that's also the in terms of advertising. When you're trying to advertise to people, you always try to show images of something you know they're going to want. It's part of why there's so much sexual imagery in advertising, because almost everyone on Earth has a sex drive, right?
Right.
But in the
Some
same
people
way,
still have a sex drive given their shit diets or
People who are-
something. Yeah.
people who are very spiritually deprived, they want something, but they don't know what. And the U.S. Army, their main symbol is a white pentagram, symmetrical and upward facing, which universally a symbol of enlightenment. You're not going to get the enlightenment in the U.S. military, but that's what they're pushing at your subconscious.
It'll make you a man.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, it'll change you.
be all that you can be. Be
My
army.
dad wanted me to join the military. Fuck that shit.
But that's
Yeah.
people knowing about this stuff is how you defend yourself from it. Because once you learn about it, it's the
Yes.
first thing you notice.
Yeah.
You see it instantly. It's not. You go to walk into a Starbucks and you look up and you notice she's wearing a tiara with 3 pentagrams on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep seeing these things everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Into everything. And
Yeah.
again, the old propaganda pictures of Uncle Sam. The top hat he's wearing, 3 white pentagrams.
Wow.
Again and again and again.
Yeah.
Which again, you're getting into things like the Holy Trinity, right? But you try to explain those things to someone and they're going to write you off. They have to actually read a lot of those texts themselves or they won't get it.
Yeah.
So there's a big part of it where you're trying to lead horses to water and then hoping some of them choose to drink, right? Which is why I was suggesting attaching PDFs if possible too.
Yeah, totally. We'll be sure to do that. Some couple thoughts that came up in hearing you guys discuss this topic. Are you guys familiar with the Project Montauk survivor Stuart Swerdlow's work at all?
No.
He has this lecture series on the Ark on the language of hyperspace, and he specifically talks about, he like kind of decodes these sort of like sort of galactic universal symbols. But so that's really interesting, as well as obviously we need to study the sort of like occult symbology.
Was Project Montauk, remind me, was it remote viewing?
It was a lot of shit. You know the Netflix show Stranger Things?
Stranger Things.
It was like basically that.
And all of that occult stuff.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts on that. I gotta let my dogs in. Give me a moment.
Oh, you have doggies. Feel free to bring them
I
on the
got to.
camera.
I will. At
love
least one of
doggies.
them will probably show up. But
You guys
just
have-
give me a couple minutes.
Do you guys have pets too?
No.
Jeff, do you have a pet?
No, but I'm visiting my dad, and he has a cat.
Nice. I wanted to go back to what you said before, Kurt. Like, I remember, like, just like talking to one of my friends about the Olympic ceremony, and I was just curious. I was like, "What do you think about that?" Obviously, in my mind, I was like, "That was some clearly satanic, shit that was performed." But I just wanted to hear like a kind of like everyday person's perspective, and she was like, "Oh yeah, French people are so weird, right?" And I'm like, "Oh God, there's no hope. Fuck this. No, we got to keep trying."
The guy who designed that ceremony was a gay Jewish man. You can look him up if you want. But
Was it Noah Harari or whatever?
No, it was someone else, but I can't
Another
remember.
gay Jewish man. That's
There's a few of those, but I mean, you've got the pale horse riding across the water that's reflecting the flames. You've got the sort
Do you
of
guys fucking hear this? Did you hear that?
Sound like a car screeching?
Dude, every time I'm like in an interview with Kurt, there's always a fucking sound that's fucking synchronous. Okay, keep going, Kurt. Sorry.
Was that a car?
It was a fucking like some sort of like tire screech.
Okay.
You have the mock last supper and all that. It really is just mocking people to their face. I don't know what to add to that. There's a lot to go over there, but it's not even new. Again, like, if you haven't, go back and watch the 2012 London Olympics ceremonies.
Okay.
There was one.
I mean, I don't want to, but
actually, you know what? I'm going to wait for you to start watching it.
I don't want to watch it right now.
God damn
Just
it!
summarize it, dude.
Unless you could like play it on like a square.
I don't even know how to fucking share my screen. Oh wait, I do know how. Here we go. Present, share screen. Share. Select window, entire screen. Okay. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Not yet.
Oh shit. Oh, browser
we can practice some other time when we're.
Yeah. Anyway, go on, Kurt.
Not recording. Anyway,
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, they had a like 20 to 30 foot tall Grim Reaper standing in the middle of a field, holding what was either some kind of wand or a syringe in its hand. And
I remember this.
Around it, they had all these hospital beds with children in them and nurses dancing around it.
Sick.
But that was all the way back in 2012. Like, this isn't new. This has
Right.
been going on forever. Now, sometimes it was more subtle than that, but that's the amount of occultism hidden in media is disturbing already. But it is. We are starting to have like award ceremonies and things where if you watch them, they're just blatantly satanic rituals in broad daylight.
Yeah.
It's not even hidden anymore.
Jeff, did you have anything to add to this topic?
Yeah, like the whole like another point that Mark Passio said is like the whole modern society is like one big satanic ritual. It's like we're surrounded by all these like routines we do and subliminal messaging through symbols or repetition or whatever we're exposed to try to convince people to take on the satanic mindset and more than just rituals, but like people like repeating lies to each other and controlling the mind in that way. Like once you've heard it so many times, you're more likely to believe it. And we we take on the satanic mindset that like there's scarcity, so you have to be selfish to survive, and it's okay to violate rights as long as you're doing what the authority says is allowed, and they accept subjective morality. Like all of society is designed to keep people enslaved by keeping them de facto Satanists with a satanic mindset themselves, even though they don't even know what Satanism is. The psychotic psychologists are using psychology to make the secondary psychopaths, the
Yeah.
sociopaths, the ones who are conditioned to be narcissistic, and then the macrocosm, the pattern is reflected in the microcosm, like the narcissistic governments controlling all their subjects. They have families of narcissists doing the same type of techniques, making people dependent so that they could be the savior, doing the gaslighting and like totally making like victimizer slash enabler relationships, and that's less efficient. The people are less prosperous, and they need someone to depend on. So they depend on the government. Like the whole family full of people end up depending on the government as well, and it's all by design. Like the whole society is designed by the Satanists, and it is a satanic ritual. The society constantly conditions the people to stay members of the government, and stay like members of the slavery system, accepting it and not rejecting it.
So there might be some need to clarify the concept of a ritual, because a lot of people hear that, they only think of like a bunch of guys in robes holding daggers around an altar.
Right. Totally.
A ritual can be any repeat behavior, and there is sort of the ritual magic side of it, where if you go into things like Freemasonry or the Golden Dawn or a lot of these groups, they did like often elaborate reenactments of mythological events where everyone was playing a role and represented a character and had a persona they were playing inside this ritual. And frequently, when you look at that, the purpose of those rituals, the people performing it understood, was in a way to induce a psychosomatic change in at least one of the participants. So,
Right.
when you're performing a ritual, the idea is to change something about how someone involved thinks. So,
Wow.
But
Yeah.
but even the repetition in people's daily lives, that's not the traditional satanic ritual. It
Yeah.
still is a magical ritual because
Sure.
it has an effect in line with the willpower of the
Right.
one who created the ritual.
The point I was going to get to is things like saying grace before dinner is a ritual. Very much so.
Yes.
And any other ritual, it can be done well or poorly. The meal can be prepared well or poorly. The way the people behave as they interact with each other at the dinner table can be good or bad. The general attitude, it can be done well or it can be done poorly.
Thanksgiving dinner ritual.
Exactly. And that will affect what kind of mental change it has on those who are involved in it. So, very common mundane things people take for granted very much are rituals. When you start looking at it that way, paying your taxes every month is a ritual.
Voting.
Getting up and going to work every day is a ritual. Voting very much is a ritual. All of these things are rituals, and they create a psychosomatic effect in you.
Swear in testimony in court.
Yep.
Salute the flag, say the pledge.
Yep. Every day. To induce a psychosomatic effect in you. It's to indoctrinate you. There's a reason it's set up that way. And I think Magic
I love
Without
everything you're saying.
by Aleister Crowley would be a great one for people to read if they're just trying to get their head around this. Magic Without Tears is where he's basically doing to and from letters with some of his students. I'll post the PDF later.
I have it up.
Where if they have questions or they're trying to get the concepts of Thelema, he's trying to clarify things for them. But because of that, he's trying to break things down very simply. And there's a woman who's asking him for a better explanation of exactly what magic is. And he gets into explaining the insanity that most people have, where they try to separate the spiritual and the physical. Like, spiritual is only when you're contemplating your navel and astral projecting and not in your physical body.
Mm-hmm.
But what he brings up is that, no, you're a spirit living in the flesh. Anything you do, by definition, is spiritual. Mm-hmm. And so, if you pick up a knife and stab someone, it wasn't just that your body attacked that man's body. You spiritually decided to attack that man's spirit. But the spiritual and the physical overlap each other. They're the same thing. You can't extricate the two. Anything you do in the physical world is a spiritual action, and you need to be aware of that.
That's a Kabbalistic thought, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But with that, people, when they're looking at their daily lives, how many of the rituals you perform are things you can't stand but do because you're obligated to, and you might be hurt if you refuse to?
Right.
How much of your day is ritual based on coercion?
Fuck.
Tax time.
Right.
Mic drop, dude.
Every day you get up and go to work, and you're paying income tax because of it. Every single day.
I heard in Australia you actually get in trouble if you don't vote. Like, you get fined or something.
Fuck that.
Is it like that in Canada?
Not be on the registry. No, it isn't. In fact, the last election we had, I didn't vote, but I remember my stepdad complaining that they were actually hiding the polling stations.
Huh.
So you'd look it up and it would say it's in one location. You'd drive there and there'd be nothing there. And then you'd go home and look it up and it's somewhere else. And it was like they were trying to make it as hard as possible for people to vote. But that's something that kind of came up a while ago with the sort of artificial condition of people. I meant to ask this, but how many of you grew up in a large city?
I grew up in like a semi-large city.
Define semi-large.
Maybe, I don't know. Worcester, Massachusetts. Not that big. Blue collar.
So I grew up.
Let me look up how many people are there.
40,000 people. It's sort of a rural part of Ontario. And
I lived in Connecticut when I was in the Navy. It's pretty close to Massachusetts.
Oh, fun. Cool.
I was just
200,000 people in Worcester right now.
Have you noticed a distinct difference when you go from sort of small towns to major cities in the mentality of the people you're surrounded by?
Dude, yeah, let's talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah, I moved a lot when I was a kid. Like, I was from California originally. My dad married a woman who was from Michigan, but yeah, she wanted to move to Florida, then to Michigan. Yeah, I remember when I got to Michigan, just like the kids in my school were like totally different. Like, there was a lot of like friendly people that I got along with. And then like I moved back to California, and like it was like a bunch of kids who thought it was cool to steal, and yeah, like I was living in bigger cities in California. I lived in a small town in Michigan, but yeah, yeah, I definitely noticed a difference. Like it seemed like people were like at least the kids were raised to be like to have like some idea of right and wrong, and like the kids in California all thought like the worst things you could do, like the like if you beat someone up, if you rob someone, then it's cool, and like yeah, it was a totally different mindset.
I noticed that too, coming from Michigan to California. I stayed in San Diego for a little bit, and people did not seem to have morals, and they loved to fight. And they love to
Wow.
start fights, and they love to run their mouths, and just stuff that would have gotten them killed in Detroit.
Whoa.
And that's when I was still in the army, I was about living 2 hours away from Ottawa. So I was in the capital most weekends. There was a medieval sword fighting club there I trained with. But
Cool.
but because of that, I normally I grew up in a small town, and then the base I was stationed at was a tiny little middle of nowhere town as well. And I couldn't stand being around the people in the city. By the time I was done with the training, I couldn't leave that place fast enough. And it's something I noticed again when I got out and I was going to protests about the injection mandates. That every time I'd go to a significantly sized city, I couldn't even stand being in the place. I just found it completely uncomfortable. And looking at it, you know how people talk about and it is horribly inhumane. The factory farming where you have like chickens stacked in tiny boxes on top of each other,
Yeah.
and you're driving towards a city, especially as it's getting dark, and you just see rows and rows of lights of these tiny little concrete boxes stacked on
Yeah.
top of each other with some poor bastard trying to live inside of it. And it's shocking that people see that and they don't realize that they're being factory farmed as well.
Yeah, if we don't like it, we got to change the pattern on the microcosm and stop doing that to our fellow living beings, life forms of like chickens and cows. Like help them raise their consciousness and evolve into some great like species like thousands of generations in the future. But yeah, don't keep them enslaved to us and like as property to be made as our food. That's what yeah that's what the dark occultists are doing to the people on the planet. And if we realize it and we don't like it, but we want to get away with doing it to animals, that's uh, we're not going to get very far.
You just made me think of something, Jeff. Remember how we were talking about human DNA? I think it came up in a discussion, like, or it may have been a class discussion, perhaps. But humans and pigs have a lot in common, DNA wise. For example, certain drug compatibilities. I mean, we've used pig thyroid and pig insulin to, help with human ailments like diabetes and hypothyroidism. Now, what's interesting is if domestic pigs escape or get released into the wild, that within a couple generations they become completely feral again to the point where they look like wild boars and they have long hair again and they
Oh
grow
yeah,
tusks.
that happened in Texas. Actually, they're
Yeah,
hybrids.
and it's right. They're hybrids too, and but what happens is obviously they're introduced, so they become invasive and they threaten the ecosystems. But what I'm saying is, what if humans become free? Who knows how quickly we'll evolve? And other species maybe too. That we never really know our full potential
Yeah.
outside of the system. Like, don't you think it's basically illegal to raise a person off grid for a reason? I mean, isn't it? Do you know anybody who doesn't have a social security number or the equivalent? Do you know of
Right.
any truly undocumented human beings? I'm not talking about somebody slips in across the border. They're documented somewhere, you know.
Yeah, like our
But
true
a
abilities can
truly
come out.
undocumented being with no schooling of official public school, with no driver's license, with no ID, with no medical records. I mean, think about that. Like,
I think
there's
Max
nobody that's
Egan
really
had
undocumented
pointed out.
unless they're in the what's that called, the Andaman Islands, or one of those uncontacted tribes. But
Svalbard.
I think
yeah,
Max Egan made a joke about that where he had dropped out of high school and he had made a living as like a performing musician traveling around. So he had never actually had a proper job most of his life,
Nice.
and he had never paid like filed taxes. He had never got himself on the voting registry. So even though it is required there, they didn't even have him on the registry to demand that he vote. Um,
Sweet.
so apparently, like one day he broke his arm and he had to go to the hospital. And they're looking at his records, and he's like a 40-year-old man, and there's nothing. It's just blank for 40.
Amazing. Lovely.
But yeah, if they can't document and file you and put you in a folder somewhere, they can't make sure that you have to pay to exist.
right.
That's I marvel at especially in the States. Like, I understand how cucked Canada is because we're still kind of a colony, but you guys had ancestors that fought for their
Yeah.
independence allegedly,
Duh.
and you've got all these
Sacrifice
states
wasted.
where they can't explain where billions and billions and billions of dollars vanish every year, but they better not catch you fishing without a license. Like, excuse me, peasant, did you want to throw a piece of string in the water without our permission? Well, you're going to have to pay us now. And people can't somehow get that they're owned as slaves.
Right.
Um, Going back to the topic of like rural versus sort of more metropolitan, I kind of feel like yes, environment affects human interactions, and that like when you're, because I grew up in a suburb of Worcester actually, but I would go into Worcester a lot. I don't want to name the town, but it ends in a TON, which tends to be a satanic town. It's a whole other story. So yeah, so like I grew up in a very, very small town, and then I would go into Worcester, which was like our big town, city. And like, yeah, like because you're not every day interacting with people, there's it's almost like the internet. It's like, why bother being polite or kind? You know, you're never going to see this person again. Is a kind of mindset that can develop. But like, if we hopefully within our lifetime, if we push this whole natural law, objective morality, you know, initiative on society, that hopefully it shouldn't matter, right, what kind of environment you're in, whether you're in like a shoebox apartment in a big city or like homesteading somewhere. Like
Well, the thing
it's
is,
it's morality that's the issue. People are just choose to not give a shit about other people, and I think because you're in a small town or in a rural area, you're incentivized to be kinder, but you're not it's not necessarily from like actual like true care, right? Does that make
well,
sense?
the external world is a reflection of the average mental and spiritual state of the people who inhabit it, right?
Right.
So, as morality increases, the way those people are living is going to naturally change with that. If if we abjugated all immoral laws to moral, with that, people aren't being taxed and coerced. They're not being forced to apply for a bunch of predatory licenses and pay a bunch of fees to start a business. And with that, if someone has a better idea of how to do something, they can just start doing it. So they'll be more prosperous and they'll be able to afford to live in a different way. So give it a couple months and they'll be able to move out of that coffin apartment. They'll be able to do something, right? There's the mental state has to change before the physical state starts to change to reflect it.
Sure.
It's the
Don't
same
you
with,
think the work week and our monetary system has a lot to do with that? Since
absolutely.
most of what we do and for a living and most of the things we do are very indirectly, we're doing jobs to get money to indirectly support our survival. Whereas if we just had to gather food and we had our own shelter that we built that we're not getting taxed on, you know what I mean? These are
frequently the money that you're working your ass off to earn is spoken for before you ever earn it. How much of
right.
what you're working to earn is for the car payment, for the mortgage payment, for the property taxes,
And it's all set at certain values.
Yes.
You harvest fruits and vegetables. If you harvest 10 ears of corn, then you have 10 ears of corn. You don't necessarily have to keep harvesting the rest of the day. You don't have to work 40 hours a week. Sometimes you may do more than that. Sometimes you may do less.
Yeah.
But you see, and then you think of, free market versus just garbage capitalism. Like, why are we manufacturing things that need to be replaced? I mean, if if we really cared about the environment, why are these Fortune 500 companies and their fucking overlords like BlackRock and Vanguard saying,
No.
we want to protect the environment, therefore don't offer your customers a lease every 2 years. Offer them a discount if they keep the same car. Offer somebody a tax break if they choose to ride a horse. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that it give somebody a cash bonus if they don't buy fucking more than 2 pairs of shoes this year. Like, think of all the useless consumer shit that's like destroying the environment.
If I were a psychopath and I wanted to design a society to make sure that people did not have the time or energy to ever develop a nuanced idea of what the world around them is and how it functions, I would want to keep them tired enough that once they're done what they have to do to survive, they don't have energy left in the average day. I'd want them to get home.
You're right.
Give them some booze, legalize some weed, and have them chill out.
I'd want them to be so tired that by the time they get home, they just want to relax. And then they turn on the machine that I gave them, and they sit back and they slide into a trance and just accept the programming I'm going to give them. That's what I'd personally do.
Right.
And most TVs now are LED that has a higher blue spectrum and a higher cyclic rate for the frames. I think a lot of the correlation has to do with how TV is delivered as opposed to cathode ray tubes. Flat screen TVs have a higher blue spectrum. We're obviously getting more blue light exposure through the phones, and people are watching that shit late at night. It's screwing up their circadian rhythms, and also doing it over Wi-Fi and streaming. I believe contributes to a more hypnotic effect. The higher definition, I think that's kind of a push, like why people want such realistic and more powerful graphics technology for entertainment is to, well, it's like a carrier wave. It's just light, right? But it's the patterns that light is creating. It's the thoughts that are being conveyed over the airwaves, and most people don't really think about it. But like, you don't know exactly what's in everything that you're seeing. I mean, there could be some things out of the visual and audio spectrum that your subconscious can still pick up on. And there's a lot of people that go into that with the record industry, especially. But anything transmitted over an electronic medium, like, can affect the human body, like physically and subconsciously. And I feel like a rise in homicide rates and violent crimes is directly related to the amount and the method of media consumption.
Well,
So
also,
we were kind of wrong when we said, "Oh, video games can't make people violent." Well, no. Video games cannot make people violent, but video games in a mind that is mind controlled, without the capacity for critical thinking, without parents who raise that kid with morals, in a household with no morals and no parents, and maybe the kid's doing drugs and his parents were on drugs. Like, it's a combination of things, and the fluoride in the water. So
They can
yes,
be a bad
normally,
influence, but the bad influence can be resisted. But it's
and
hard with
that's
all
the
these
thing.
other
Like, you know,
factors.
a violent video game, a violent movie. I mean, no, it can't make you. But we have people that are so weak that they can't even make themselves do anything. They just kind of impulsively act and reach for things and do things. I mean, as evidenced by people who have opinions on things that they don't even know about.
God, that's just about everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
sometimes I like think about like how long people like Mark Passio have been talking about this, and it's just like the same shit over and over. And I'm like, I'm new to this like truth journey, podcasting journey, and I'm like, I don't know if I have. I mean, I'll have to summon the will to do it, but like, we're gonna have to fucking just repeat ourselves over and over again,
Well,
ad
Mark's been
nauseum.
doing that for years.
that's
Like,
actually,
like, how do you
Yeah.
not fucking like shoot yourself in the fucking face? You know,
as I've been trying to
the
go through all of
populace
this required reading, I've been
yeah,
blown away by how many different authors I've gone through that have more or less tried to describe these same problems to people in different words. And I
yeah,
keep thinking, like, the problem isn't that the information isn't out there; it's that the people are unwilling to consume it.
right.
And that's something that I was really hesitating before taking Mark's course because I was sitting thinking to myself, like, what the hell do I even try to say to these people? They've been told this so many times now, and they still
Sure.
haven't listened.
You got to bribe them or use duress, one of the
Yeah,
two, a bribe or duress. I know. Why don't you offer a free lesson, for a limited time only, and tell somebody it's only $1.99 on your credit card, and I'll give you the secrets to the universe, and then they think there's something fucking valuable in it. They'll
see,
listen.
at least I'd been playing around a bit with the idea of doing some live streams where I just sat down and went through some of these old texts that people haven't read, so that people can either tune into it live or listen to it like a podcast
I
later.
think that's a great
But
idea.
so many people are so averse to sitting down and actually reading, even if it isn't. I don't like audio formats. I think they're inferior because audio is very passive. You
Mm,
when you're reading, like if you sit down with a physical book, for every word you have to do something. You have to
sure.
look at the symbols. You have to put them together. You have to
Right.
say the word in your head. You're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's a
So you
bigger
have to
sacrifice of your time and attention. You can't so
right.
easily do
It's
something else
much more
simultaneously.
focused.
That's fair. Yeah.
And if you're trying to take it, like, it's one thing if it's light fiction, yeah, listen to it like an audiobook. But if you're
Right.
going through really important philosophical concepts or topics on like deep psychology in people or social conditioning, you really want to be paying attention to exactly what is said. And
Sure.
it's not my preferred format for that. But there are so many of these people that they will not pick up the book. They
Mhm.
won't. Like, you could point a gun at their head, tell you to shoot, rather than pick up a book. So at least it would be out there for them, but that
You
was
know, I agree. I agree.
I agree with you,
That's how
Kurt.
I
Yeah.
read Lysander Spooner's Constitution of No Authority. I was at my job working a night shift. I had a lot of time, but I couldn't be sitting there staring at a book. So what I had it in a smaller window, and I believe the text was scrolling while the person was reading, and I got to basically watch a book, read itself to me. So that, and even with video, like if somebody were to just sit there and read, it is something that a lot of people can do while they're on the bus or they're in a commute or, they're relaxing. And I do love the fact that podcast culture is a thing now because people got tired of scripted TV, fake TV. Then they got sick of reality TV because it's even more scripted sometimes,
Sure.
like MTV Real World. I mean, some of that's more scripted than the sitcoms because the actors on
Right.
the sitcoms would be improvising,
Right.
So,
Right.
I do think we have a good opportunity here to share sources like that, Kurt, whether it's in an excerpt or in full form.
I want to acknowledge everything you said, Kurt, and I'm going to call myself on my own bullshit and own that I use the excuse that I, quote, don't have the time to do reading and I choose to do audiobooks. And you're right. It's not as engaging. And thanks for calling me out on my bullshit.
well. There's no need to really call anyone out on it. It's just that if you are, especially if you find yourself struggling with the concept, go back and read it, right?
Totally.
Like if you're trying to figure out what they meant, go back and read it rather than listening to it because it really does change how you think about it. And very much the same. I probably wouldn't have the tenacity I do for reading now if it wasn't because of work. Because while I was in the army, I kept classic literature and philosophy in my rucksack all the time. So we'd get done a march and we'd be sitting down to eat and have some water, and I'd have like Nietzsche or Plato or Kant or Hume in my backpack, and I'd sit down and start reading.
Nice.
So I got through a lot of that work while I was getting paid for it, actually, which is a luxury most people don't have. So I'm not just trying to throw shade at other people. Sometimes your life really does get in the way. I do understand that.
Well, if we are to be honest with ourselves, like truly, like in my own shadow work, I use my parenting sort of status, I guess, as an excuse to not engage further, and I need to change that. So,
Hey, sometimes you just don't want to talk to someone and you want to be polite about it.
Yeah, I've always had a hard time managing my time wisely, and because of that, I much prefer like the audio format than like sitting down and reading. But yeah, I acknowledge the value of reading. Like, yeah, if there's something where I think like, hey, I didn't get the full understanding of this because I was like doing something else and hearing it in the background, I might want to actually read on the topic as well.
Well, this sort of goes back to our original sort of topic about like how do we like, get this message to people when they don't have like an attention span, right? Like, and it really just takes willpower at the end of the day.
I've thought that on some amount I should start looking at doing like TikTok level content that's between like 30 seconds and 2 or 3 minutes that I can put out there. And even if it's designed to try and, if I make a website, try to link people to it, to hopefully drag them into the longer form content that might give them a more nuanced view. At least that's it, to try and market it. So I think it's still worth trying to reach those people.
Absolutely.
What do you think about riddles or jokes, things that can subvert and kind of slip through the conscious mind, right? So if you frame
Right.
something as a joke or a riddle or a parable, and you just like said something like, well, imagine a scenario in which, and you just give some kind of scenario and pose them as thought-provoking riddles or scenarios that really, like, by the time they decide they don't want to listen anymore, you've already delivered the punchline and they can't fucking forget it, and it's going to bother them, and then they're going to look into what you said.
Yeah, some of them are so creative. Like, I want to repeat one. I hope I didn't say it in the last podcast. It was from this YouTuber, RPM Trey Vietnam. He's like a Second Amendment advocate, but he had his thumbnail for his channel, and I commented, that's an awesome thumbnail. If you make it into a shirt, I'll probably buy it. Yeah, some of these jokes and memes could be put on shirts, but it was like a picture of like a stack of skulls, and it said, "The look on your face after they take all your guns." Like, yeah,
Oh God! Oh my God! That's like funny and horrible at the same time.
I know, but it gets your attention, and it like
yeah, it does.
And it makes you recognize truth. Like,
Shit, like damn.
Yeah, jokes are great. You got to come up with some good ones. Remember
Let's
the good
brainstorm those, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh God, there was Anarcho Polko, and then there was the Free Your Mind conferences. I think it was Free Your Mind 2, Larkin Rose presentation. He did sort of like a 30-minute stand-up comedy routine where he did the dialogue between an alien that had just landed on Earth and a human, and the human has to try and explain to this alien from a foreign planet what government is.
I saw that. It's like a 3D. Oh no, never mind.
Someone made like a 3D animation of it, but originally it was just Larkin Rose up on a stage doing this as like a stand-up gig, and it was hysterical.
Nice.
If you've got some time, you should look it up.
Totes. Love it.
Also, his tiny dot. It's just like, it's not like a real interesting animation. It's a little bit funny too. It's called Tiny Dot. It's a real like animated thing that lets you visualize like how the actual government is such a small fraction of the people that are controlling all the people who outnumber them.
Yeah, totally.
A lot of Larkin Rose stuff is good.
In addition to humor, I feel like, just like thinking, and I've brought this up in our, class discussions and both live as well as on the Gilded and Telegram chats. But like thinking about subliminal ways, like through music or art imagery. I've been kind of like playing around with just like silly posts, but just like short format. I don't know where I'm going with this, but finding other ways in besides, because like clearly there's plenty of people that have done, like what we're doing now, like longer format podcasting, but this is like where we want them to be. But like we've got to like reverse engineer that to like the point of like, well, how do we get them to this point? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nothing wrong with fighting a guerrilla meme war against the Antichrist. Dropping memes can be good.
Memes, totally.
Satire, memes and satire.
I'm going to start writing this stuff down. Okay, memes.
You don't need to write that down.
Well, I like to recall things.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone has their own.
We're doing humor, music,
years now. I don't think I could forget that.
No, but if it's
Okay,
like one of
Chris.
what if it ends up being one of several items on a list, it might do us good that she has like something to reference to later.
Well, I don't know, because like I am, it's really difficult to perspective take with the populace, because like if I'm really interested in something, I like to take the time to dive in, and I have difficulty understanding where they're coming from because I'm a fairly focused person. So I guess I don't know. I don't know how these people think, I guess.
Well, I was in the Hare Krishnas for a while, and that's kind of a cult. And
Oh,
they go through downtown areas and chant Hare Krishnas in the streets.
I've
Kurt, I don't know
encountered
if you've
them.
ever seen them in like Toronto or Ottawa.
Do you have
No,
to change your name to Singh?
no, that would be a Sikh. Sikh would change their name to Singh.
No, I
If
had these
they're
neighbors that
baptized.
were like every single one of them. Like I think maybe it was their last name, but they used it as their first name. They all went by Singh. Like, but
Yeah, it depends. I mean, like Singh is common in a lot of Sikh families, but
but they were
also
Hare
there can
Krishna.
be there and so there's some that just have that as their last name. It means lion.
Hmm.
Um, so, but I remember that. Well, one of the ways that Hare Krishnas would preach is just to be like in the street chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and then also distributing books and having conversations with people. And basically, it's trying to make a quick interaction with somebody, usually trying to find some common ground. You
Hmm.
might say, like, hey, do you believe in karma? Here's a book about karma
Oh
or
my
whatever.
God.
You know,
I've
so,
encountered these people.
yeah, I used to be one of
Yeah.
them. Yeah. And,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, I lived in an ashram for a little bit. And, what's interesting is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada said back in the 60s and 70s when he came here and started the movement that, some people would ask him, like, when are we going to have world peace? And he said basically when all the slaughterhouses are closed.
Oh,
Prabhupada said
dude.
that basically there's so much animal slaughter going on right now that collectively, in the aggregate, humanity is doomed unless we change that.
That makes me want to
Um,
say
Yeah.
something about epigenetics.
yeah, go
Um,
on.
hey, if you're done though.
No,
Okay.
I was just saying that like there's some techniques. There's some techniques in art and conversation, and showing up at music festivals and things like that that we can adopt, and that a lot of these concepts, such as the collective destiny of humanity, as a result of the violence that we engage in, are
Oh, I like your idea about bringing
paramount.
those hashtags. Like, you could bring it to the concert and like share it with a whole bunch of people.
Free vegetarian feast Sunday night, it'll get people to show up, right?
Oh
So if
yeah.
we ever have an opportunity, whether it's a free lemonade stand, see, you're not selling it, uh, or if you ever get a chance to throw a small festival, open mic night, a gig, and of course the podcast. But anyway, you can plug something and make it look hip, because there's a million ways to everything. Natural law applies to everything, so you can use anything to dovetail into it. Cooking.
Oh my God, your
Um,
dog's so cute.
oh, thank you, Maverick. Come here. Let me say
Sorry.
hi. Come
What's
here,
your
buddy.
doggy's name?
This
You
is
just said no.
this is Maverick. Hey, buddy.
Hi,
You
Maverick.
shy? Say hi.
Ooh, how old's Maverick?
He's 3.
Oh my God, he's so cute. Oh,
Yeah, he's a husky pit bull mix. It's a goof.
I agree that we're gonna have like freedom and peace when the slaughterhouses are closed. Have any of you seen a YouTuber called, or he's on Odyssey, influencer called What Da Math?
how do you spell that?
WHATDAMATH.
Dude, you're
It's
gonna have
a
to slow down. Hold on, say that. WHA. Duh.
WHATDA instead of the THE. It's DA and math, MATH. What the math?
Okay. Okay.
So he talks about a lot. He talks about space a lot and science. It's not really about freedom or anything, but he had like one video that like really proved epigenetics. It was like a real interesting phenomenon, some scientific study that was done. Like you could get like a big group of people, and then like pictures of a big group of people, and then make a multiple choice quiz and put like 4 different choices, 3 incorrect names, 1 their true correct first name, and then have people guess like, oh, which is the correct name, and like a big group of people tested with a big group of example names and faces, with 4 choices where they would randomly get the right answer 25% of the time. All the people were actually guessing the correct name 50% of more than 50% of the time, and they also like took pictures of kids and then had them artificially aged by the AI. And then with those pictures, they had the people like guess the names, and they were just guessing the right answer 25% of the time. And it looks like people like develop their facial features based on their name, based on like society's expectation for the name, like or for the physical like characteristics of the name. Like Bob has a O in the middle. It's kind of like a short word. It's kind of a round looking word. So like people named Bob have like rounder faces a lot of the time.
I'm
It's
sorry,
like,
I'm laughing if someone's named Bob out there.
but yeah, it was just one of the examples, and like he gave several different examples, but like it was proven that like consciousness is like affecting the development of the facial features. It's been proven also that DNA definitely affects the way biological life develops, but consciousness affects it as well. And there's also like phenomenon of collective unconsciousness, like the 100th monkey effect is where like they could take a monkey and separate them from their population of monkeys and like teach a skill to that whole population, but the monkey who is isolated will automatically learn that skill. Anyway, where I'm going with this and the slaughterhouses is, I heard a theory also mentioned on the What on Earth is Happening, talking about the episode talking about food, but like the not only does every species have a collective unconscious, but so does the entire planet, and humanity being like a pretty like highly developed species like has a big influence on the collective unconscious of the entire planet. And
Did you guys
like
see this lizard?
us doing all these slaughterhouses, like
Oh yeah, nice.
You saw it?
Yeah.
I
We don't have those in Michigan, so they're kind of interesting. Now I've
What was
seen
it?
salamanders.
It was
in
a
Michigan.
lizard. Sorry, Jeff. Keep going. I just
Oh,
want to
cool.
show you guys a lizard.
Oh, no problem.
It's so cute. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Where are you now?
I'm outside.
No, I mean, what state are you in?
Oh, Florida.
Oh,
You don't
cool.
have a cat, do you?
I wish I had a pet. I'm not set up
I
for
was
one
gonna say
currently.
your lizard should be safe as long as you don't have a cat there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff. Sorry.
Like people say, like the predatory way, or like like stealing or something. That's the natural way, because that's the condition of biological life. I don't think that's human nature or nature in general, or the natural way for biological life on the planet. That's just like the condition of government and slavery is the human condition. It's not human nature.
Right.
Like creatures killing and eating each other. That's also a condition, and like we have a great effect on the condition of the whole planet, because we have a high level of consciousness. But like if we raise our level of consciousness and stop doing the wrongdoing to other species and to each other, it could have like a drastic effect on the development of biological life. Like within a few generations, like the different species in nature might evolve to like all be symbiotic instead of predatory, and that's some major changes for predators that don't make their own like amino acids. They have to get it from eating other animals. But plants could change as well. They could like start growing more nutritious fruits. um it sounds far-fetched, but like there's evidence that biological life changes over time. It evolves, and like there's also a lot of evidence that consciousness affects it, not just uh, DNA. And like we were talking earlier also about the Bible having a lot of bullshit, but also having a lot of metaphors that have good meanings. That they say like when the dead are risen and when there's utopia on earth and everything, you'll see like the lion laying with the lamb. And like I think that could happen. I think that, like the natural life could turn into some like totally symbiotic thing where animals aren't even victimizing each other. That's not the way of nature. That's the condition of
So
biological life right now.
one thing about that, Jeff, is what I learned studying the Hindu literature is that there's a lot of people, at least in the Eastern traditions, that believe that animals progress that souls actually progress from lower levels of evolution to higher levels of evolution, and that basically, like we could have started out at a very low level of consciousness, like a plant or a microorganism, and then became lower level animals like insects, and then evolved through fish and bird species. And what they believe is that once a being gets to the human form of life, they can get a mind with free will and the ability to understand right and wrong, and from there they could progress into various different species too, whether they be higher evolved celestial beings, either ghosts, demonic ghosts, um, go back down into animal life. That like basically we may not, as individual sparks of consciousness, always had a mind, but we've had the capability of having one when we're ready. So I
That,
believe at some point, Jeff, yes, it will all, like even the ones that are like predators and prey right now, they will all get to a point where they can opt out of that.
yeah, that goes in line with a lot of my own personal beliefs. Like I think our mind did develop over several lifetimes into one that could understand uh, like higher concepts like right and wrong. But I think it happens like one generation at a time. I think like our consciousness goes into our offspring. So like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think like you get some bad karma and you get like reincarnated into like an insect or a microorganism. I, I think we were microorganisms like
Now,
millions of generations ago, but like yeah, now we've evolved into something great, and we could devolve. That's the plan of the Satanists, but we could evolve, and then like all the lower, just like we probably evolved from like microorganisms to like worms or insects or, or like four-legged things to things with like opposable thumbs and like a large mind. Like the insects could evolve to like some humanoid form or
Sure.
maybe there's something special about the humanoid form. Maybe not. Like I've heard some theories that maybe like dogs and cats will have like hands with opposable thumbs once they're highly evolved. I don't know. That doesn't matter actually. It's like unimportant details, but like I definitely think like every life form wants to evolve into something great. Like that's the destiny of evolution.
I remember when I went through the Kybalion, it discussed the Egyptian view on reincarnation, and within that, it wasn't so much that the dogs would learn to not be dogs anymore. It was that that same soul of that dog might come back as a different animal, eventually a human.
Right.
So as the level of consciousness changed, the type of being it incarnated as would change.
Yeah.
With that, I remember it mentioning that, and I have to check the veracity on this because the depth of my knowledge on Egyptology is very, very slim. But at least the claim in the Kybalion was that the reason the Egyptians had a god of dogs was not because they worshipped it, but that the god of dogs was there to be the god for the dogs. And it was so that their idea was that if an animal spent too much time around people, it could pick up character traits. And with that, it might eventually reincarnate as a human too early and not have the spiritual development required to actually behave properly. Because even the best behaved dog would not be a well behaved human being. So the point
At this point, we're so in.
the point of the god of dogs
Dogs
was to lead the spirit of other dogs through the reincarnation cycle to come back as the right creature. But with that, I've looked at some of these ideas. I'm not sure where I sit on them. I'm mostly agnostic about it. It's something I've floated around, but I don't really have a set opinion on it.
No, neither do I, because I don't know. Yeah, anything could be. Like, I don't remember my own previous life, so I don't know.
I kind of feel like, because I used to have a dog. Sorry, one of my headphones just died. Can you guys hear me still?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Like I would observe my dog, and he would like dream. He would, like when he was sleeping, he would sort of chase and bark while he was like lying down and like run and stuff. And like, I was just sort of amazed because I didn't know, I had never owned, I don't like to say owned. I had never had a dog in my life at that intimate level before, previous to him coming into my life. So I just didn't know dogs did that.
When they have night terrors. Hey,
I've had mine. I've had mine like yelping and whining in their sleep, like they were getting attacked. Yeah.
Oh no.
I've had loved ones, human and a cat, who passed away, like visit me in my dreams, and like I could just tell it's real.
Yeah. So yeah, what I was gonna say is like, yeah, like I think it's just, I mean, for a dog to have that ability to dream or have nightmares is like sort of it calls into question this idea of like, I don't know. I actually think
that means they
dogs
have a
are
soul.
like more evolved. Exactly. I think dogs are like more spiritually evolved than most humans. But that's, yeah. the
Well,
current
the fact
condition.
that they're not subject to morality in itself means that they can't be, they're incapable of immoral behavior. They could do
Totally.
things that may be harmful, actions or something, they could bite you, but they don't really have the ability for malicious forethought and actual immorality.
Well, I just think it's
So,
telling,
yeah.
like, if anyone, does anyone like listen to satanic ritual abuse survivors at all, like
Yeah.
their testimonies?
Mhm.
A lot of people who have gone through those horrible rituals report that they like start with dogs sometimes, like have the children like
Mhm.
torture dogs or kill dogs.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's just like something there, that the fact that like the Satanists are so interested in dogs specifically, also like they harm
Pavlov,
bunnies.
Dr.
Right.
psychiatry.
Oh,
Right.
he did the two-headed dog, right?
No, he
Oh, I'm
took
thinking of.
Pavlov was a psychologist who, like the Pavlovian, with the
Conditioning, conditioned
bell,
response.
conditioning. Yeah.
in the case of Anthony Fauci, he had a lab where they had a bunch of beagles they cut the vocal cords on, and then they put
So
them in
horrible.
like a device where their head was inside a box with I think it was like sand flies that had been starved, so they could watch
Fuck that.
these dogs have their heads be eaten while they couldn't yelp because their throats had been
Disgusting.
right. It was like, what exactly are you researching that requires that?
Yeah.
What are you going to find out of any value? But that's
So
the
they use
obsession.
beagles in
Uh,
the pharma industry, and rhesus monkeys, and dog pigs we mentioned.
Yeah.
and man, if
And
there
they
was ever a
genetically
breed of dog,
modify them too.
if there was ever a breed of dog I've never seen hurt anyone, it's a beagle. Like,
I mean, at this point, if you're taking a pharmaceutical, like you're participating in that,
well,
because they use those to justify the production, right, of these like harmful chemicals,
But the
which
fucked
is
up
a
part
great
is they know
segue.
that they're harmful chemicals.
Totally. Let's segue, Darren. You mentioned in our previous episode about your journey and realizing that these psychoact. You wanna take it away, or bring up the subject, or
Yeah. So with psychiatry and psychotropic drugs, a lot of the early antipsychotics were in the class of phenothiazines, which are phenothiazine drugs are piperazine class derivatives. So essentially, they're a neurotoxic alkaloid um, developed from essentially plants that are similar to pepper, such as belladonna. And see, these things have anti-cholinergic effects, and they shut down not only the dopamine receptors but the acetylcholine receptors. So some of them can cause permanent antagonism of receptors in the brain. And the theory is that if you use these chemicals, you shut down certain areas in the neocortex that would be very similar, although to a lesser degree on a brain scan, would show similar results to a physical frontal lobotomy. Okay, but instead of getting in there and doing some gruesome surgery with an ice pick
which
and
they used to
something
do.
that's clearly violent, right?
Yeah.
It's presented as more humane than
Mhm.
electroshock or physical lobotomies. But essentially, it does the same thing, brain damage.
Are
And
these the drugs
so,
known as SSRIs?
antipsychotics I was referring to,
Oh,
SSRIs are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So, when we sleep, our body has its own monoamine oxidase. So these endorphins, which are endogenous morphines, and neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, different tryptamines, thyroid hormones, thyroxine. These are all broken down in their constituent parts when you sleep by your body's own monoamine oxidase. And you can think of it as simply them being recycled and taken back. So these chemicals degrade, they get broken down, and then they get recycled by the body. Okay, so if you don't have adequate rest and a balance between REM and non-REM sleep, you won't be able to have these processes go properly, which can cause mood swings and instability. So what these drugs do is they shut down the part of the brain that processes cognitive information. So when you give somebody an antipsychotic like Thorazine or Haldol, one of these antipsychotics, you don't really necessarily get rid of their delusion or hallucination that they're having, but you do impair their ability to process it or give a fuck about it.
Mm.
And you can tell because as soon as they come off the medication, these so-called delusions come back. Well, where did they come from? They're there, and all these drugs are doing is impairing people's ability to act out on it. For example, somebody has a feeling of doom, a feeling of paranoia, so their mind may create a scenario that manifests itself as a delusion. And all these drugs are doing is knocking out like the ability to reason abstractly and also the ability to feel pleasure because they're dopamine antagonists.
Yeah.
And so often the only emotion that people could feel would be rage. So a lot of times
Wow.
they only allow very primitive emotions, mostly rage.
This is part of the problem we're dealing with, yo. Think about how
Yeah,
many people
they turn you into the Tin Man. They cut off the chakra system starting at the neocortex, and these drugs do affect the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. A lot of these drugs will have black box warnings regarding hyperprolactinemia, which dopamine and prolactin levels are inversely proportional. So what you're going to notice is let's say with someone who's been pregnant, right? What happens when you're in the first to second trimester of pregnancy? You get all kinds of brain fog, mood swings, apathy,
pregnancy brain.
breast tenderness, weight gain. Like these things, you look at somebody on an antipsychotic drug, and they're going to have a lot of the symptoms as somebody in an early stage of pregnancy when prolactin is starting to hit.
Right.
And one of those things is apathy. Apathy. And in men, the largest prolactin surge would be following orgasm, where you get simultaneously apathetic, tired, and hungry. Okay. And when somebody's on antipsychotic drugs, they feel apathetic, lazy, tired, and hungry.
Right.
And basically,
not clarity.
Right.
Well, they say it'll clear up your thoughts, but imagine being in a state of post-nut clarity when nothing else in your life has changed or improved whatsoever.
Yeah,
ignorance, apathy, and laziness. Like you remember the story of Jubilee, Jubilo, and Jubilum from the Masonry? Yeah, like they attacked Hiram Abiff by like hitting him on his head, hitting him on his heart, and tying his hands, because those three things like represented
thoughts, words, and deed.
Ignorance, apathy, and laziness are like not caring about those things, but or like caring is the opposite of apathy, and like knowledge is the opposite of ignorance, and I
And
forget all the.
ultimately, these drugs are sold for money. I mean, if you think about it, there's no money in getting somebody to permanently buck or refute any of their delusions. There's no talk of it. They completely say, I mean, psychiatry is nihilistic.
Yeah.
They don't. I started in the abnormal psych field. I couldn't finish. Once I started hearing shit in my linguistics classes about how there's no such thing as proper grammar, and that proper grammar is rooted in white supremacy, and
What the fuck?
yeah. So what they were telling me is that, if people speak a certain dialect of a language, a Creole or broken English or Ebonics, that essentially that is just as correct as standard English. And I said, okay, well, if you want to hold it in the
Speak like
same
their grammar.
esteem, if you
Yeah.
want to hold it in the same esteem as a language and say that it's no more correct or incorrect because that's how someone speaks, fine. But I I proposed this to the professor. I said, does that mean that somebody who speaks, let's say, some African American variety of English, and they don't speak, let's say, standard American English, you think it's to their advantage to be completely unable to read a book, such as, I don't know, the Constitution of the United States or a philosophy book? Because what you're telling people is that they don't need to learn proper grammar because that's rooted in white supremacy, which it can be. It can be elitist and it can be exploited for that reason. But I said, you're telling people whose grandparents may have been illiterate because their grandparents weren't allowed to read a book, and if they got caught reading a book, they would be killed, as well as the white people teaching them how to read would be killed. And you're telling these people that you don't need to learn how to read or write or talk like these people, because these were all slave owners. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to avoid reading philosophy, and
Right. People
they
need
don't
to
want you to
learn.
understand your rights. They said these people were not even allowed to read for hundreds of years, and then you're telling them that actually you're allowed to read, but you don't want to read this stuff. Just don't read that. Everything you think and everything you say is like perfect, and you don't need to learn anything other than you already know. That's why it's a stand down operation. And I said, it's racist for you to tell people that everything they do is right just because they do it. Nobody's right just because we've been doing something. You need to be fluent in everything. If you have a chance to learn another dialect of your own language, if I can read something that was written in the 1800s, but I can't read something that was written in the 1500s, then I should practice more.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you tell somebody you don't need to know how to communicate? And then that shows up in, then you want to talk about college admissions and workplace performance, and why aren't people promoted to, why does there seem to be systemic racism? It's because right now, at least, it's because academia is telling people that you don't even have a place in that field, so just don't even try. That's a stand down operation from the sickos at the top. The Macy's
Divide and conquer.
conferences, the was it Rockefeller Foundation. These think tanks that want the old bloods to still win will give people quote unquote freedom and civil rights, and then encourage them not to exercise them. The Gun Control Act of 1968, right after the Civil Rights Act. See, every time they just propose something to distract you and stand down saying, you're good the way you are. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, that was like such a very comprehensive take on the obstacles we face as speakers of truth, right? Like we're dealing with pharmaceutical industry, we're dealing with government, we're dealing with education system. Going back to pharmaceuticals, I so relate to everything you said about like a little dirty secret about birth control is that it totally fucks up your mood. I was like fucking depressed as all get out on it, and it took me like a long time to realize, oh, it's the birth control I'm taking that's causing this. So yeah, like it, and the prolactin, it just forces you to be in a pregnant state. That's why it works, because you're not.
Right.
Have you ever had your prolactin levels tested?
Can I please bring something up here with that about
Go ahead.
why it would mess up someone's mood?
Go for it.
Like you were saying, it makes your body think you're pregnant.
Right.
Which is why you can't attach a new fertilized egg, because it thinks you already have one. Now, then you stop taking it and you have your period, right?
Sure.
So what is it in nature when you
Like a miscarriage.
When you are pregnant and then suddenly you're not pregnant, but you didn't have a baby?
A miscarriage. A very sad thing.
So what's happening is the woman taking that drug is going through the hormonal shift as if she just had a miscarriage, but she hasn't. So there's a whole bunch of anger and sadness that doesn't have a rational direction to be targeted because nothing actually went wrong. So if you've been on that since you're 16, by the time you're like 22, you've gone through the hormonal shift of having close to 100 miscarriages. What the hell do you think that? What do you think that does to someone's
right now?
And then think about like cancer risk, right? And in men, if you have hyperprolactinemia, guess what happens? Sperm production goes down, testosterone levels go down. And what happens when that happens? Depopulation, the inability to say no.
Think about how many of these women on these birth control drugs, my sister's one of them, also then end up on the SSRIs.
Dude.
Yeah, what about PCOS too?
Mic drop.
And
keep
my
talking.
sister's on all of those things, and she happens to be on the local city council.
But it's her body, bro. Like, you know, you don't want people to have sex. You don't get laid, bro. Like, that's what people will literally tell me. You're just mad because you can't get laid. I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. So people should hurt their bodies?
Who need all of these drugs to function are then put in positions where they're supposed to be making decisions over other people's lives. Like,
they have to take some drugs to do what they fucking do, man. You know, God forbid they wake up.
I'm really aesthetic, and I'm just like imagining all this, and I'm feeling a lot of feelings right now. Keep going. Oh my god.
Yeah.
You know, the concentration camp guards used to hit the sauce quite regularly and do some fucking meth, you know?
Wow.
Even when I was in the army, I used to hit the sauce fairly regularly.
You got to. Look at Sipowicz from the NYPD Blue show. You know, he beat the shit out of some suspect. He'd see some dead bodies, you know, talk to some rape victims, you know, and then he'd drink himself to sleep every night.
This reminds... Oh, go ahead.
No, I didn't have much really to add. Originally I just wanted to make that point about what the hormonal shift that's happening there. Like, of course women are angry when they go, especially people talk about PMS again like it's something natural. I'm not sure it is. What if you stop taking that pill? Is it the period that's causing that huge hormonal shift, or is it the fact that your body thought it was pregnant and you think you just had a miscarriage that's causing that anger?
Dude, isn't psychosis one of the like warnings on the IUDs, the hormonal ones?
You know, I did take the Mirena at one point, and
I know someone who like got literally psychotic on it.
Wow, that wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Jeff, do you have anything to add about birth control?
No, you guys like have like a lot of information about all these pharmaceuticals. I'm just listening and learning.
Okay. Just want to make sure it's included.
Did any of you guys see any of Dr. Brian Ardis's work during
I watched a little bit.
Corona?
Can you spell that last name for me, please?
I'll put it in Telegram. I'll just type his
Okay.
name.
Cool.
Ardis, right?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
But with that, he had been doing research because of people who allegedly had the Rona, also apparently having really rare toxins like cone snail toxins. And
What is that?
Cone snails live at the bottom of like deep ocean, hundreds of meters down. Like you have to be a deep sea diver normally to be exposed to cone snails. You maybe get like a dozen stings in a year ever. So why are all these people having these cone snail toxins in their bodies?
Wow.
And originally he thought that the symptoms of the alleged plague were being caused by people being exposed to venoms. And first off, this was a wonderful example of people not actually listening to the presentation, just sound bites of it. Because if you tried to bring this up with most people, they'd start trying to shoot holes. And I don't totally agree with everything he said. I have my questions, but they'd try to shoot holes in it, and you could tell that they didn't listen to him for a minute. Because the first thing they'd say is like, "Where would you get hundreds and hundreds of gallons of cobra venom if you're going to do this?"
Manufacture it.
Well, if you actually watched his presentation, doing some patent research, he found out that someone discovered a way by introducing venom proteins to algae or yeast. As that algae or yeast reproduced, it would also reproduce the venom protein. And then you could just separate the algae from the venom, and you could, in basically swimming pools, you could culture thousands and thousands of gallons of artificial venoms.
Like biologic drugs, right? Isn't that how like other biologic drugs are made? They're cultured.
It's not just
I heard
Like
they were doing
cheese.
something similar to culture opiates. Have yeast and E. coli produce opiates instead of poppies.
So while I'm not sure that was really the cause of people getting sick during the alleged plague, what it has caused is a lot of people to start looking at those patents and where they're being used. And not only are there a massive list of commercial pharmaceuticals that all contain different animal venoms, especially snake venoms in them, but a shocking amount of women's cosmetics.
Whoa, really? Tell me
Women's
more about
moisturizers and face creams you find on
Kurt,
Amazon.
are you
that
gonna
when
tell us about circumcision now and why circumcision is so often recommended?
because it gets used in women's pharmaceuticals? Yeah,
Stem cells, bro.
Oh,
I know.
Whoa.
You didn't know that, Gary?
No, I didn't, dude.
Yeah, there's cultured stem cells from circumcised foreskin that gets used in women's cosmetics.
That's so gross.
and you know the Botox is botulism toxin, right?
Yeah.
The same
I didn't know about the foreskins.
back in 2016, a bunch of Pepsi shareholders filed a lawsuit against the CEO for including aborted fetal tissue in their products without telling
I did
them.
hear about that, yeah.
I looked into that a little bit. So like they got this flavor. They like isolated this particle. They used the aborted like fetal tissue to like discover this flavor. But then like once they found that molecule, they were making it synthetically, and like the flavor,
just like the Rona, the Rona shot.
Yeah, it wasn't actually coming. There wasn't actually like matter from like aborted fetuses in the Pepsi, but like the molecule that gave the flavor, like they discovered that like from doing some type of experiment on the fetuses.
It's like the recipe comes from a human sacrifice, but not the beverage.
Right.
Tissue from an aborted baby for flavors. Like, stop. How did you get that sentence out with not Why
Oh,
are
you
you
know.
like
imported baby for flavors?
yeah. At least you're not drinking the matter. It doesn't gross me out as much. But like, yeah, it's very disturbing that like.
But it's selected. It's selected so that it can have an effect on us. See, it was bioengineered. It's a bioweapon.
Right.
But yeah, there's all kinds of women's cosmetics even that if you go down to the bottom of the ingredients, Cobra Venom is listed.
Wow. Yeah, dude. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Because the paralytic effect of it can cause the wrinkles, to stop.
So you may not know this. So, because I'm the only woman on this call, so I'm just going to share this. They have all this like lip gloss that stings you, and
Uh-oh.
it's supposed to make your lips plumper. And I'm like, that sounds weird. But like, there's like this whole, when you go to like a makeup store, there's like this whole like line of like
Mhm.
plumping lips. It plumps your lips. So that's
Like
probably
habanero peppers or something.
that right there.
If you can look at the name of that company and send it through the
There's
television,
several. There's like tons. They like
if the
almost
next time
every
you're in a
major.
store, if you can just like take a photo of some of it,
Yeah, I'll try to look. That'll
I'd
be
love to
my
do some digging through those companies and see what patents they have. That might be interesting.
totally plump.
But isn't that funny that they would want to make flavors that are so in tune with the target audience?
I have the fucking weirdest list right now. It says memes, humor, music, and then lip plumper. This is my fucking list right now.
All the food groups are represented.
Oh yeah.
Fucking weird. Okay. Dude, that's fucking crazy, man. I didn't fucking know that. Well, I wouldn't put it past, a lot of these, I mean, we all know this, right? Like a lot of these like makeup companies are also, subsidiaries of these other PepsiCo, blah, blah, blah. You're right. Like they're
Yeah,
all.
when you start chasing it, there's only
Think
a
about the
handful of
torture of infants shortly after birth going towards the beauty industry to make old hags feel young again. Think about that. Think about that dynamic. I mean, that's very Cruella de Vil. Very.
Chrome.
and a little bit of like
Yeah.
It's like really stealing their youth and their innocence by like traumatizing
And then
them right away.
traumatizing them with sexual trauma right after birth, so they'll never be able to form close bonds with people. Always have this inherent distrust of other human beings, internalized in engrams, and possibly give them split personalities or schizophrenia later in life.
I just, am so like in awe of people like Kathy O'Brien, Jay Parker. Are you guys familiar with Annika Lucas?
I have. I've heard at least one podcast. Was she on one with Jay before?
I don't know, perhaps, but
I've heard the name.
Yeah, like that's kind of like how I got into this shit. Just hearing firsthand accounts of things the children saw. Anyway.
Oh yeah, Kathy O'Brien witnessed like kids having to behead other kids, and is that right, or am I thinking of someone else?
I mean, that happens. They make them fight each other to the death. It's just horrible shit. It's just, and they make them eat shit. They make them torture animals. Horrible, horrible stuff. But
I'm surprised the Pizzagate thing didn't get more traction.
Well, but what's amazing is these people have gone through this and are like speaking out. It's amazing. These people are amazing.
The big debunking story behind Pizzagate was, well, the place doesn't have a basement, so the claim was the abuse was happening in a basement there, so it can't be true.
Look at the Podesta artwork, man. As a man thinketh, so is he.
I'm telling some of my family members that a lot of the politicians are either pedophiles or rapists or gangsters or something. They're selected to be politicians because they've got something to hide, so they're blackmailable. And they're telling me like, Like, why do you even believe this? Where are you getting your information? Like, I can't believe like the whole Epstein story didn't get more traction. Like, the whole
Quick.
like spy network got
Yeah.
revealed what they're doing,
Seriously.
and people just
It was
like
right
blow it
out in
off.
the open. They could just tell us. They could be like, "Hey, by the way, man, we kill babies and we eat them and stuff and we torture them." Dude, nobody will fucking care, man. That's the problem. Unless they feel personally hurt by it.
Oh man, football's on.
Yeah, sports ball. Yeah.
But
Oh, I mean, we're
You
doing
see, no fucking sports ball until everyone learns natural law. See, there you go. No video games for a whole weekend.
Mhm.
a terrorist gang of rogue snipers shooting the ball in midair repeatedly so they can't make plays.
Oh man,
No one
maybe
was
we come up with our own sport. You know?
Ugh. I mean, what can we do? Like, this is, just horrible that people don't.
Well, the thing is, like we were saying, that this is going to sound a little bit dark, but there's technically nothing wrong with the world right now.
Sure,
If
sure.
you look at it from a certain angle,
Right.
like
People.
Oh, look at this! There's
people are
an
going to
antelope.
Oh,
Look, let me,
No shit.
it's in my dad's front yard. Can you see it?
Nice.
holy fucking shit!
Wow.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
It's like
there's
fucking there.
there's more of these than people in Wyoming.
OMG, that's so cool, dude.
so
That's so cool.
where was I?
I'm sorry.
People put this upon themselves,
It's a
essentially.
sports ball that bred in circuses.
Well, what I was saying.
Oh, here's another one. Here's another one.
Okay, hold on. Oh fuck, he hung up. Okay, Kurt, go.
Yeah, so like people end up living in the world they helped create, and
Yeah.
by not caring about these things, like on a personal level, if all of society collapses and we go through sort of a road warrior phase, yeah, it's gonna suck, but it's what people chose.
Right.
It's what they chose with their behavior every day.
Yeah.
Like, what
Can I
Sure.
let you guys in on a secret?
people want to go to work,
Let's
get
let Kurt
home,
finish.
and then just be entertained. Because by the time, again, we were saying earlier, by the time you burn yourself out at work all day, you don't want to think about anything anymore.
Right.
So they don't have the mental energy to sit down and start like, okay, what are my politicians up to? This is what they're saying on the news. What are they actually trying to push through in the House of Commons right now? These things line up. What does the news in other countries say about these things? They don't have the time or energy to sit down and do that. So they live in a really tiny perceptive bubble, and they don't have outside perspectives to change that for them.
What were you gonna say? Hi, Jeff. What were you
Sorry
gonna
about that. I shut it down on accident. I'm back.
say? Is it still there?
Thanks for showing us the antelope, though.
No, there was two of them. They left.
Oh, bummer. Darren, you're gonna keep the secret.
Yeah, that's the reason I grew out the mullet, because every post-apocalyptic scenario needs a mullet guy, whether it's They Live or it's Snake Plissken and Escape from New York or Beyond Thunderdome.
You're so
And so when people ask me like, what's with the mullet, dude, I'll be like, dude, can't you see we're heading right for fucking World War III, dude? Obviously, the dudes with the mullets always know what to do. Rambo had a mullet. MacGyver had a mullet. Roddy Piper. Like,
it's all the hair.
Yeah, dude. I mean, come on. Just get with the program.
Love it.
Love it.
You guys, we're like 2 hours 43 minutes in. Those are like kind of the topic. Do you guys want to talk about anything else, or should we wrap it up, or how are we feeling?
I'd be willing to wrap it up at this point. It's almost 11 here.
I kind of need to pee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been holding it in. Sorry, TMI.
It's okay.
I think it's a good stopping point. Like, yeah, let's try to brainstorm some topics ahead of time next time. And you actually did that. Like, we had a shorter time to prepare. Our first episode was a few days ago. Now we got a whole week. Maybe we should get down and get together and talk about it like a day before or something. But hey, yeah, it was a good talk. I don't want to keep you. You got to go to the bathroom. Like, bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye
Nice
bye.
chatting with you guys.
Good meeting with you.
You too.
See
See you
ya.
next week.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Yeah. See you.